background is we can always imagine the weather is whatever we will want it to be. So, I'm Augie Grant, the director of CTE. It's my pleasure to welcome you to another session, one of the most important sessions in our newest certificate of completion on experiential and integrative learning. So we're very happy that you're with us today, and I'll tell you a little more about CTE things at the end, but right now I want to jump into introducing our panel so we can give them the most time that they have. On the Integrative Experience and Experiential Learning Roundtable, we have first our moderator from the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering. Charlie Pierce is an associate professor who's been with UofSC since 1998. He is a faculty fellow in the Center for for Integrative and Experiential Learning. I'm getting used to the new name. What used to be UofSC Connect. He's also Director of Diversity and Inclusion in his home department. He serves as campus representative and division director for the American Society for Engineering Education. He spent the last decade creating student-centered learning environments in engineering through adaptation and blending of pedagogical strategies. His interests include collaborative, problem-based learning to facilitate student development of transferable skills, such as critical thinking and decision-making. Next up, we'll just go down the panel, not in the same order. Maryanne Taurus comes to us from the Arnold School of Public Health in the Department of Epidemiology and Biostatistics. She's also the director of the Consortium for Latino Immigration Studies and a clinical associate professor in the Arnold School. For 20 years, she's taught several graduate and undergraduate courses in epidemiology in the Arnold School and the South Carolina Honors College. She was instrumental in establishment of Global UofSC in Costa Rica, which has been offered as a summer program since 2016. And since fall 2019, she has worked with professors from biostatistics and environmental health to teach a 5-credit course for first-year students in the Master of Public Health program, specializing quantitative methods for public health practice. Next to her, we move to the School of Library and Information Science. Elise Lewis teaches in a variety of courses, including information literacy, technology, cultural institutions, and foundations for the library and information science field. She teaches across the board from undergraduate, master's, and doctoral courses. Regardless of the topic, delivery, format, or content, she strives to provide an interactive experience that betters her students' understanding of their community. She also aims to make sure the students leave the classroom with skill sets required to be a lifelong learner and have fun in the process. Her research focuses on cultural institutions, service learning, and information literacy. Finally, from the Department of Theater and Dance, Stephanie Milling as Associate Chair, Interim Director, Interim Chair, Undergraduate Director, and that's in her home department. She's also a faculty mentor in the Center for Teaching Excellence. Since her she's also the head of dance education. Yeah. Since her performing career, Milling has taught in a wide variety of artistic and educational environments. She helped author the 2010 and 2017 South Carolina Standards for Dance Education, has edited the curriculum support document that accompanied the 2010 standard. She's an active arts advocate in the state and nation, and she received the South Carolina Dance Association's Advocacy Award in 2012. She's currently the Advocacy Director for the National Dance Education Organization. Her creative and scholarly work revolves around the intersection of women's studies and dance, assessment, advocacy, and pedagogy. What you have here are faculty who have taken their careers not only specializing in what they do, but finding ways to bring it actively, not only into the classroom, but out into the world. So you got a great hour plus in front of you. Charlie, turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Augie. I appreciate it. So first and foremost, thank you for coming out on a Friday, especially on a cold and rainy day. So we really do appreciate it. I think that's especially important because we are hoping that today will largely be a conversation. It is a roundtable. That name, that word is part of the name of the workshop. So let me just give you a quick overview of what I hope we will get out of this. So I think our goal primarily is that you will get to hear a variety of experiences that faculty have had in different disciplines with what experiential and integrative learning looks like, in the hopes that maybe you can take some pieces away that might be relevant for your own discipline. And so that's the big goal, I think, for today. And the follow-up piece of that is that hopefully we can answer some questions that you have of us. So the way that we've structured it is sort of in two halves. We'd like to take the first half to give the panelists an opportunity to share with you a specific example or two of how they have used experiential and integrative learning in their class or classes. So I'm going to give them each a few minutes to sort of share that with you. And of course, you are welcome at any time to ask questions, so please do. Once we sort of go through that piece, then we really do want to have an open floor for conversation. So we have some topics prepared that we would like to talk about, but absolutely we would like to receive questions from you all. And then we'll take the last few minutes to close, maybe with some tips and takeaways. So that's the plan for the roundtable. So with that, I'm going to ask for my first volunteer of the panelists to go ahead and share one of sort of your experiences in the classroom. So whoever would like to go as well.
I think everybody just looked at me. So. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to, Stephanie, but you can go.
Just to give you a little bit of background before I'll explain two of the courses and how the students are actually out getting some hands-on learning in the field that relates to their area of study. So the students that I teach primarily are students that get certified to teach dance in public schools. So they end up with a K-12 certification. So basically, I'm teaching people how to teach. Which, well, right there, I mean, they need hands-on experience. And they actually are in a school every semester, every single course they take leading up to their student teaching. They are placed in a K-12 environment that matches the course content. And there are assignments in the course that relate to what they are doing in those environments. However, on top of that, there are other areas that they need to know about to be successful in the field. And kind of, when I took the dance education concentration and reshaped all of the coursework with integrative learning in mind, the thing that I start with prospective students come and audition and interview for our program, I'm really clear that if you just want to be another dance teacher, like we don't really need just another dance teacher in the world. But really what I train them to do is to be change agents in the field and future leaders in the field. And they actually have risen to that. And I've never had any resistance to that kind of perspective going in. So two courses I'll tell you about. One is the Introduction to Dance Education course, which is the course where we learn a lot about policy. We learn about policy, arts education policy in this country, arts policy, and education policy that relates to what they will be doing, because that directly impacts what they will be teaching, how they will be teaching sometimes, and other things that happen in the school day. So we spend time learning about policy, advocacy, and then we actually go do it. We go to the State House and they talk to politicians, and they're able to articulately speak about how this relates to their future livelihood. And they do the same thing in Washington, D.C. That one's not a requirement because that costs money, but the State House, it's right there. And so they can go to the State Arts Advocacy Day, and it's great. It's gotten to the point where actually they're able to make those connections on their own and articulately speak about it. And it's gotten to the point now where really I'm the photo taker in the room. I don't really have to prompt them anymore. They understand the connections. And then the second experience I'll talk about is in a course called Integrated Approaches to Dance Education. And one of the pieces of that course is learning how to work with individuals with a variety of abilities in a dance environment. So if you have a wheelchair user, if you have somebody with cerebral palsy, how do you make the dance space an inclusive space? And so we learn strategies really in other courses as well, pedagogical strategies. And then they develop a plan. They get information on the consumers at the Babcock Center, which is here in Columbia. It's right down, one of the locations is right down Shop Road. They give us information on the participants before we go, so the students can research the specific abilities and accommodations that our participants might need. And we go in with a plan, but they realize that needs to be adjusted because people are not identified by their abilities. There are other things that you need to consider. And we have a series of teaching days there, and then they measure what they have seen in terms over time in terms of participant growth. Really isn't the right word because it's not like we're necessarily there in an educational sense because we're working with adults, but they measure like what they have seen in terms of progress throughout the time. So is that good?
Yeah.
That was kind of the nutshell.
Yeah, nutshell. Questions for Stephanie that you might have about what she does in those two courses? Anything come to mind?
I do have a question. The only dance I had was done by the PE teacher at my elementary school. We did square dancing.
Yeah.
But what does that look like in inner city environments, so low income areas?
Yeah, and that's actually what I used to teach in the South Bronx and in Harlem in New York City when I was working in K-12. And really it's, any teaching environment, good teaching is good teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Dance pedagogy is dance pedagogy. And really it's kind of like what we do at the Babcock Center. It's like we know the environment, we know the context. What's the role of dance in the environment? What's the population we're working with? Are there any special needs that we need to be thinking about beyond the content? And so really, I think it goes for any environment.
I just have a comment. Like I was a social studies guy, but I had so many friends who are artsy and just felt like kind of excluded at school. And like the art programs in school definitely helped them stay in there where they didn't really feel like they'd fit in.
Absolutely, and really any environment we walk into, like we're not teaching like an hour and a half ballet class. Right, that's just kind of a very alienating experience right there. But what we're doing is that we're thinking about arts education in terms of problem solving, critical thinking, creating. What is it that can provide opportunities for people to be engaged? And and movement is really expansive. It's not always a very specific vocabulary.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions for Stephanie? Okay, very good. Elise, do you want to go next?
Absolutely. A little shift here in our disciplines. So part of my role in the School of Library and Information Science is that I'm the undergraduate coordinator for our information science program. So I'm going to give you two examples of where we've worked in experiential learning and integrative learning, one on the programmatic level, and then we redid our curriculum about 2.5 years ago. And with that, we realized that information science students needed hands-on experience, practical experience through an internship or independent study. So we incorporated that into our curriculum and made that a requirement. Having said that, it's not just go out and do something. We are very diligent and deliberate about having a reflective piece in there so that the students can say, this was my experience, this is where I got it in the classroom or where I didn't get it in the classroom, and what does it mean going forward? Unfortunately, we don't have a degree that most people know about. Most people don't know what information science is, and you don't know what you're going to do with that degree. So we really emphasize with our students that what you're doing outside of the classroom and how you talk about that is what's going to get the job. Because employers look at the name of the degree and go, okay, it sounds kind of cool, but I don't really know what you're doing. So they need to be able to have their elevator pitch right away where they can say, this is what I've done, these are my skill sets, and this is what I can do for your organization. And we've seen that work really well with the independent study and internship. On a class level, I teach research methods. So I don't know how many of you have taught research methods to undergrad. It is not the most exciting or it's a required class, so they have to be there. So I kind of have a captive audience. But it became really evident to me that if the students were invested in the research process and understood what it meant for them getting a job, they were a little more engaged and it was a little more exciting. So what I do in that class is I give them the option to either take a final or to do a research poster presentation. So in the fall, we have our own little Discover USC. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the big research presentation that we have here at the university. We do a small one for information science students in Davis College. And they work all semester on their research project, everything from the abstract to at least getting some pilot data, getting that in a research poster, and then presenting it. So we do a lot of scaffolding there with what is your elevator speech? How can you say in 3 sentences what your research poster is about? Most of them are terrified to present. And, they get suited up and it's, I try to replicate the real world and what a job interview is gonna be like or talking to employers. This was the first year that we invited outside employers in to come in, so I kind of ramped it up a little bit, and 2 of the students got internships out of it. So that was really, really exciting. So in the end, they're usually happy, but sometimes you have to drag them kicking and screaming that it will be okay and I will get you through this, and they always rise to the occasion.
Excellent. Questions on that specifically for Elise with what she does? I love the idea of that specific poster session for students. That is fantastic. Okay, very good. Maryanne?
Okay, so first I want to say some preliminary things. 1, I had fancy shoes this morning here, but it was raining and I had to walk. So either I carried my other shoes, I brought them on purpose, but I didn't carry the fancy shoes. And believe me, I didn't think I was gonna be showing my feet. I thought they were gonna be there. Number 2, but these are the shoes and the jacket over there that I wear in Costa Rica because at the time we go, it's raining. So in the classroom, not necessarily, but outside walking a lot. So, I'm showing you a little bit of my world. Number 2, you have here 2 different offices that are so extremely helpful to us that it is unbelievable if we don't use them. So one is the Center for Teaching Excellence, and I work really hard with Dr. Lydia Frast right there. She is making possible that I am able to teach well. So we are very grateful to you and the work you have done with us, with our new curriculum. So thank you. They know everything, and and they don't let you know that you don't know what they know. That's one. And the other one is, and Amber, you're gonna, forgive me. It was USC Connect. That is not USC Connect anymore. But she's one of the leaders of that office. They do an amazing job, and I've learned so much about experiential learning and integrating from that office too. So, what I'm here to share with you? We created a program in Costa Rica 5 years ago, and the idea is initially it was not, but now it's focused on public health. And we take a group of students between, depending on the year, 19 to 23 students. They are thinking that maybe this year we need to have a little bit more. We don't want too many. Those students are going to take between 1 and 3 classes. My preferences is 1 or 2 classes in public health. One is epidemiology for 10, an undergraduate class. That if they take it here at the university in a regular semester, they have 99 to 119 classmates.
Wow.
So in Costa Rica, they have 11 or 12 classmates. And that's how I sell the class. And they take 2 more public health classes and 1 class, Spanish for healthcare professionals from the humanities. And so, but the program, they take the classes, it is, all of them have to have and do some visits to healthcare places. So there is a shelter where they have HIV people living, a nursing home, and lots of clinics and places where health services are provided. So one of the things that I have very clear is, I don't know if you have seen this, but students and us, we think we know everything. And so they get to Costa Rica and this is wrong, and all that. And so I start telling them, and I have a little video that I showed to them that I wish you can see it, is this person that goes to, do things and no likes on Facebook. And then she finds her friend that goes to Africa to work with poor people, has 1 million hits. This is from NPR. And so I show them that to start preparing. And then I show them that about every single health indicator in Costa Rica is better than the health indicators in the United States. Life expectancy is longer. Obviously then mortality, lower infant mortality, lower, you mentioned it. And I don't know if you've seen, it's one of the happiest countries in the world. So we go there, do the visits, and I have this in mind, and this is maybe just me, this in mind, because here it comes the specific example. The students that go are wonderful. They are honors college, they are from mostly from public health, but not only. So one of the students, we did the whole program that if you have questions, let me know. I cannot tell you every single thing. The only thing is that you need to take these shoes and a jacket. That students came. We went to an activity in Costa Rica because there is a problem, particularly in agricultural workers in the sugarcane. That they are having special renal disease. So the universal healthcare system there is addressing the issue. So we went to an activity and I was very impressed with the activity, and many of the students were really unhappy. This doesn't work. I was like, okay, here we go. So, we tried to fix and so, but then one of the honors college students came and said, okay, can you help me with my honors college thesis? And I said, sure. So what I want is to interview all my classmates that went to Costa Rica to see what they think about that program because it's not working. And I said, okay, so let's do this differently. I want you to do a review of the literature of what is out there regarding this disease. What is happening in Latin America, perhaps Costa Rica, is it happening in the United States, make comparisons, and then provide recommendations. This student did the most amazing review ever. And she forgot the concept of this is not working. Because the work is based on the reality, not based on our own view as perhaps privileged people that are able to go and have a class in Costa Rica because they have to pay their fee and all that. Not everybody can do that. So, to me, that's very important. And that's my mission in life, is to not only internationally, but locally. We need to make sure that we, and I'm not talking about them, whoever them is everybody, realize that every single person has a whole knowledge that can provide solutions to their situations that are living. And that we are instrumental on resources and all that, but it's not like, I know everything, I'm gonna solve your problems, I'm gonna educate you. So, I apologize, we are going at GR5 in May to Costa Rica. And just let us know if you have any questions.
Yeah, that's great. Questions for
So we have-
Maryanne?
yes.
Avery.
We have two questions. One, Miriam, you mentioned a video. Are you willing to make it available?
Yeah, it is like, what is that thing that, with the short videos? It's in YouTube, yeah.
What title?
I have no idea, but I can send you the link.
Okay, and then the second question, I believe, is for Elise. You made a statement that you give students a choice between taking a final exam or a poster presentation. What is the actual number of how many students choose to do the presentation versus the final exam?
So it changes throughout the semester. In the beginning, everybody is on board for the doing the poster as opposed to the final. Reality hits, and when deadlines start coming up, that number goes down a little bit. In the fall, I had 22 students and 19 ended up presenting. And it's usually it's a very small percentage that just opts for the final. But it's usually the students that, life got too crazy for them and they weren't able to get it together, basically.
Okay.
Other questions for Miriam or the panelists?
I have a question for Elise. When you have the business people come in, do you already have a partnership with them? Like, can you talk to the logistics of doing all of that?
And that I'm gonna have to rely, we're very fortunate and in our college, our career services manager is phenomenal at that. And it worked out really well. She's recently been, they recently created that position in our college. And so she was really active in going out and saying, I think you should meet with these people. I think you should meet with these people. And so she was the one that invited all of them. So I gave her a list of where students had either previously expressed interest in interning or we knew we had a relationship with them, and she kind of followed up on that. But there were just kind of some cold call emails saying, hey, information science students are presenting, come see. So we didn't get any results from that, but it was just there were some cold calls out there just to try to get out to let people know what our students are doing.
I have actually, so the class where my students participate in advocacy, then they have to do a final advocacy project at the end of the semester. The course involves other things as well, but that's the big final part. And I just contact professionals, experts in the field that I know. And I've had people come here, I've had people view their presentation and give them feedback online using like GoToMeeting, and people are really willing to step up in that way. And it's great. I think it's great for the students to hear somebody else's voice You know, I can tell them why it's important, but then to like a professional in the field, maybe somebody's books that they've read or somebody they did a session with at a professional conference. It's, you know, for them, it's really, it really kind of takes their experience up a level in terms of their own professional development timeline. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, go right ahead.
It's almost with integrative and experiential learning, we're teaching people how to contextualize, teaching the students how to contextualize what they're learning in other environments too. I think it goes for everyone. So when you go from like a student who says, well, they're doing things the wrong way, and then they look at the research and see that what is being done is effective, you're like teaching, oh, well, there is another way of doing it. Yeah, I just think that's amazing. Yeah. That's a question.
So that makes me think there were, I always enjoy moderating because I get to listen to all these wonderful things that other people are doing, but I want to share two observations that I had as I was listening to them share. One is, if you were not as familiar with the Graduation with Leadership Distinction program that is run through the Center for Integrative and Experiential Learning, it is an opportunity for students to earn a distinction on their transcript and degree by following one of 5 available pathways. And so what was interesting to me is I was listening to the 3 we have, and I don't think we planned this, but I heard examples related to each one of our 5 pathways. So if you don't know, we have a pathway in professional and civic engagement for students to follow, one in research, global learning, diversity and social advocacy, and community service, right? So I heard elements of all 5 of those here. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention if you're not as familiar with that program. So clearly students, I think, that go through these courses that you have wonderful opportunities to build on that for graduation with leadership distinction.
And we have in Costa Rica sessions of reflexive sessions, how they apply what they are learning and from their visits and all that to their learning. So, and we plan those, one every week. Is a 3-week, very intense. Every week they have one session, so they reflect, and the person that leads the session knows what he or she's doing.
And that reflective piece is really, if you read scholarship on experiential learning, the reflective piece is extremely important and valuable. And as far as like your own program evaluation data or your assessment data, like I've used all the experiences in all the courses as a means then to capture data at graduation and then to capture data like 2 years out. You know, and I list things that they participated in, so I know, was this beneficial to you, and is it still beneficial to you in your work now? But the reflective piece, I can't remember the book, but one of the books I read talks about the reflective piece and having it happen at different points in the process, not just at the end, but like you were saying, like, you know, having it happen at different points in that experiential learning process. Because it's really the reflecting back, I think, where the students really understand what they gained from those experiences. It takes it cognitively, you know, it's the difference between the application of knowledge and like that metacognitive place. Yeah.
One other thing I'll share, and then I'm going to ask for more questions, is that actually was a nice tie-in to the second observation that I had. So thank you. So the other observation I have from the 3 here is, regardless of what kind of experience you want to provide or what opportunities you want to provide for your students, to me, the core is that as a faculty member or as an instructor of a course, that you're willing to build a relationship with students. Because I don't think any of these things really can be as successful as you want them to be if you don't have that willingness. And to me, that is a core principle for me personally of teaching. That's how I embrace teaching, is by building relationships with students. And so I think it's a nice tie into the reflection, because if you're able to sort of build a relationship of trust with students, and then you're asking them to sort of reflect on their learning and provide feedback on their experiences, if they know that's something that they're sharing with you, they might feel a lot more comfortable in providing sort of an honest reflection on what they have learned, because they believe that you value hearing from them on that experience. So I think in a lot of ways, if you're not really sure how to even get started, if that's where you are with doing these kinds of things, I think it all starts with that willingness to just engage and build a relationship with students. So,
Charlie?
yes, David.
In response to you mentioning the GLD program,
Yes.
I provided the link online, but are there any other resources that you can provide or point instructors to so that they can assist their students to learn more about the GLD program, graduating leadership distinction?
So in terms of just learning about the program, there was a wonderful website that the Center for Integrative and Experiential Learning manages for specific things. Amber, do you want to share?
Yeah, we are happy to do a couple of things. One, we can do one-on-one meetings with faculty or staff across campus to explain more about the programmatic piece. Also, if you have a class that you think would be a good location to provide a presentation to, we have our advising staff who are happy to engage with students in that way through a mix of PowerPoint and a little activity in there as well. And that could be however long that you want to dedicate in that class period. And I'll just throw in one other option. We have an e-portfolio process that's a major component of the Graduation with Leadership Distinction program. I manage that process, and I'm continually looking for reviewers. So if anyone is interested in seeing what that looks like from an e-portfolio standpoint and how reflections are vetted, and what we find is that reviewers who come benefit because they get to see how we've defined integrative learning on this campus, but also I tend to see some light bulb moments where, like, oh, I can see how I can incorporate some of this into my own course, own class and pedagogy. So just put a plug in there. I'm happy to talk to anyone who's interested.
And the rubric that you have created to evaluate those portfolios is amazing. So to evaluate precisely that, I am sorry, I'm learning more than what I'm helping, but
No, appreciate that. Very big fan of the reviewer training. She comes ready.
But I think all the students that apply, they are wonderful, that they deserve to graduate like that. So I've used that rubric with other, not the same, but it is so well done that is easy to grade those. One other thing that I wanted to mention is that in terms of resources, we got a grant from the Center for Teaching Excellence with a project, an idea that I had that every single class that goes down, that we teach there, we have to have a specific project. So my class does a project with data in a nursing home. So the students have been able to help define the population, have some data from the medical records to help decision making in the nursing home. And one of the students that went the first time wrote her honors college thesis with that data, and I went back the following year with the report. I think that's it's like you say here, giving back. And then we the monies from the Center for Teaching Excellence, we had the other group, the other classes, they participate on an outreach program for HIV testing. Again, we can learn here what they do. They go to a park where they know the people hang around, and they invite them, they give them breakfast. So I am imagining here oh my goodness, going to the park, maybe the horseshoe, and having everybody, not realistic, I imagine, but is for the students to participate in processes that they may be able to change ways in the future here in the United States, learn something. That's my whole mentality. It's not just, I'm going, have fun in Costa Rica, and they have fun too. But they, different ways out of the box so they can in their practice apply. I don't know if I told you, the students stay with host families. So they don't need to know Spanish, but they will learn or they will learn because they are in a home that they don't speak to them in English. So it's a very neat program.
I'll just add one more thing related to the GLD program. There are also faculty fellows going back. That program started a few years ago. And so it is very possible that there is a faculty member in your college or school or department that I'm sure would also be willing to talk to you or talk to one of your classes about the Graduation with Leadership and Distinction program. And so I do believe on the website you can find most of those people, but you can certainly reach out to me if you're trying to find someone that maybe can come talk to your students in a class or even just talk to you. Let me know and I can certainly help point you in the right direction. So, very good. So, do we have other questions or other topics that you would like to hear from us? I have a list, but I kind of want to hear from the audience to see what you might have. Questions?
I'm interested in knowing how experiential learning is defined. Is there any particular that define experiential learning?
It kind of depends on, so I right now, just because I wear about 20 different administrative hats, my research is not quite as robust as it was 2 years ago, but I have presented internationally and nationally on what I have created for my students. And experiential learning, when you read, you read on service learning, you read on experiential learning. Integrative learning is a whole other entity that there's been international research done. And so I'll kind of tell you the way that I define it, which I think is the way that we really define it here with what used to be UofSC Connect, which is now SEAL, and through GLD, is really the making connections among within and beyond the classroom experiences, and then synthesizing those experiences and really thinking about how it impacts your role in the future in your work. And so that's, and I know that's kind of like my own little definition from all the resources that I've consulted, but sometimes you read about experiential learning and it's really about being out and finding a community partner in some way. Sometimes, there's that reflective piece and so that's the way that I define it. And AAC and U, they have these value rubrics at the American Association of Colleges and Universities, and they really talk about it as something that it's not something that's isolated necessarily. You can't have an isolated experience, but thinking about this kind of work, thinking about integrative learning as an opportunity to really build a set of competencies isn't the right word, but I get, is that the right word? A set of competencies that can be developed over time in study, as opposed to like a one-shot deal. Was that a little too much?
I got it all, thank you.
There's a quiz later.
So really I think, so I'll say this, and I think, can I?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so one thing I'll say is I think starting small is key. So like a lot of the partnerships that I have now in all my courses, like there's another course where we have a partnership with our Bright Horizons on campus, which is the Children's Development Center. And it started out as like, I just want my students to come over and they've got to learn how to teach creative dance and they've got to learn how to teach young children, right? Well, now I taught 6 of my classes there. Like when we were learning about space and some concepts of space that I thought, I don't need to teach my students about these concepts of space in the studio and then we go and teach them to younger students. We can just make that happen all at once. Like they can learn the content, and they can see the pedagogical strategies in motion, and then we can go back and reflect on it. So, but it didn't start, I wasn't teaching 6 of my, 14 weeks there at first. And now the staff there, I heard one of them came in with a parent that thought they might want to enroll their student at the Children's Development Center. And she was like, yeah, so we have dance classes. Well, not really. It's just, we're kind of visitors in this way, but I was like, hey, go ahead, use it as a recruitment tool. And so it is that win-win, but it's really like if you start something small and start with a pilot, then it can kind of expand beyond there. And then you can think about, how does this impact my research? How does this impact like long-term professional growth for the students? And it kind of materializes in that way over time.
One thing that I would say to put a few pieces together is, at least it's a phrase that I use, there's a difference between experiential learning and experiential doing, right? So we want students to go do things, right? And that's very valuable for students to go do things. But I think if they don't really reflect on what they have done, you're missing that element of learning. And so there are experiential learning theories, if you'd like to go down that road and look up some literature. There's a Kolb experiential learning theory that basically is revolving around, students sort of planning for a concrete experience, having that concrete experience, but then reflecting on what they learned from it. So I did just kind of want to put those pieces together because we talked a little bit about the importance of reflection. Avery, there was a question, right?
Yes, Charlie, this question is for you. To what extent is the engineering department here at UofSC are planning or willing to incorporate IEL into their curriculum?
So I would say right now, that would be instructor dependent in terms of, and that's how a lot of things often run. If there isn't sort of a lot of programs, degree programs here on campus have wonderful built-in internship opportunities. It's not something that we have in engineering, but there are instructors who are doing these things, building them in at sort of various levels of complexity, I would say. But in terms of programmatically, I'm not aware of, not in my own department, civil engineering or other departments, where that's sort of really being discussed yet at that level. But there are examples of that, I think, from program to program and course to course. And one other thing I'll say just related to that, this was sort of on my mind from earlier when Elise was talking about her students doing this poster presentation and getting internships from that. And it's a tie into what Stephanie said too about starting small. There are very little things, fairly straightforward things that you can do to help students just go get an experience. So I'll give you one quick example. I teach our Introduction to Civil Engineering course, so it's primarily incoming first-year students. And one of the things that we give them as an assignment is that they need to go to the career fair. And so we make them, quote unquote, do it with an assignment. And part of the reason we do that is we know the value, of course, of them exploring opportunities for internships, even right away as incoming students. But we also do it because we know many of them would never do this on their own because they don't feel like, I can't go do this now. I'm just walking into an engineering program and I don't even know what engineering really is, so I'm not sure what to do. All the more reason for them to do it. And so I say that because we have the same experience is we will have students as first semester freshmen walk away with internships. And so I will tell you that I think the most important thing that we do with that very simple assignment is after they go to it. By the way, we usually, just so that you're aware, it's a fairly large class, 100 plus students, but we're usually coinciding our course time with when the career fair is. So basically that's what they do for that class period. That's how we get them to go there. But the most important thing we do is the following class period, we just have an open conversation. And it's amazing to hear the things that students will share about, there's always at least one that will just have, wow, what a great experience I had talking to this employer. I had no idea that they would even be interested in me. So there are a lot of little things that you can do. Yes?
I'll always ask a question.
Good.
How, like a lot of times, like integrative experiential learning, it requires more from the teachers as far as planning and the instruction goes, but also requires a lot more from the students. And sometimes students who grow up in a more traditional type of classroom experience, whereas I'm big on pedagogy of the press, so like the banking type of model of teaching, they kind of almost give a pushback. Just give me what the answer is so I can, give me a test, give me what the answer is so I can get A in this class and get out. What do you do about students who are more resistant to integrative experiential learning?
You wanna go?
Can I go? Okay,
Go
so.
for it.
Okay, so actually, I don't have any pushback.
Okay.
Yeah, and let me, and this is kind of bringing a few different tangents of knowledge together. So I was lucky enough through the CTE, I got a grant to go to Dr. Ken Bain's Summer Institute, What the Best College Teachers Do.
Okay.
And I'm very, I'm teaching people about teaching, I'm very transparent with my students. And I've integrated a lot of his techniques. And one thing that he talks about is giving students opportunities for some autonomy in their own learning. And so we have a project, not every semester, but a couple of semesters where I'm like, I just call it a culminating project. And they have to figure out what it is, they have to tell me how to assess it. And they do something, I say, pick something that you think is gonna be valuable to you in your future work. And I explain my methods to them. I explain that like these experiences, it's not busy work. We're not here to do busy work. We're here to really train you for something and to approach your profession in a really informed way. And they grab onto that. My students get Magellan scholarships. A couple of them went to the New York Public Library to do some research for a project that was going to be in a class the subsequent semester. I've had students present at national conference and apply for Magellan grants, to the Voyager grants, to go to those, and they just, I don't know, I just say like, this is the expectation when you come in. Like if you wanna come study here, you're not just gonna be another person teaching dance, I'm sorry. And so, and I don't know, they grab onto that and they rise to the occasion. And when you explain to them the why, I don't have any pushback.
Yeah, to add to that, and I also think it's how you approach the classroom. If you let them know right up front, I'm not gonna sit here and lecture you all the time. You're gonna have to be responsible for part of your learning and doing things like making accommodations, even scheduling things. So if you want them to go out into the field and do something, budget that into the class time. It's okay that you're not in front of them for, the allotted time during the week. If you have some flexibility, then I think they realize, okay, this is important because they're budgeting it into the class time, whatever that experience is. So definitely, it's changed the way I thought about, my syllabus and, how long am I in front of them and where do we have discussions and things like that. It's made me much more flexible. And if we are having a really great conversation or a reflection or some, they had this experience, it's okay to spend a little extra time on it. They're still gonna get it, right? I mean, they're still gonna get the content, but it doesn't have to be this check mark on the syllabus that I think a lot of us sometimes fall back on. And it does take a little bit of time, but once you get the foundation down, it's a lot easier, I think, so.
And I have a student that he did it in the second course out of 4 and now he just does it every semester. And so these special experiences that we have, these experiential learning moments, and he's kind of starts the semester now with, well, what do you have for us this semester? Like, I'll give you. And it's become kind of a joke because I present the whole class, here's the 16-page syllabus and we have a moving experience and we talk about the expectations and then he'll say at the end of the first day, so what do you have for us this semester? And that's what he's asking me is like, what are kind of, those out of the box teaching moments, those hands-on teaching moments that we're gonna get. Yeah.
We
Go ahead,
have
Siri.
a comment and you can provide your insight or feedback. Sometimes it's difficult to incorporate IEL into classes such as math or the hard sciences. Some faculty, because these classes are dense with material and often instructors don't feel like they have time to sacrifice on anything except the core concepts of the curriculum. Can you all provide any insight or best practices that you have experienced?
Let me try, so I teach epidemiology, and it is a lot of research and math and all that. And from the very first day, I'm telling the students that with what they learn in the class, they will be able to have tools to go to their legislators, when you were mentioning that, to their legislators, and say, please don't cut my program, don't cut the budget, because we are reducing mortality by this, or we are changing this, or this is happening in the population. Or you can create programs with what we are doing. So it's not just, and I respectfully have to say, the knowledge is not in a vacuum. It's to do something with that knowledge. And in my opinion, math applies to everything. A math mind is wonderful. It applies to the arts, it applies to the science. So to me, that's very clear. And I go with you, I'm tying up with telling the students from the first day, you are going to use, you are forced to be here because this is a core class for you. You didn't choose, and this is for graduate students, but it's similar. You didn't choose epidemiology for your master's, and you are here learning epidemiology. So let's have fun and apply. So learn how you are going to apply doing things for the good of public health, as an example.
So a follow-up to the question is, and this is, I guess, for anyone on the panel, someone who can join in to respond. Maybe perhaps a flipped classroom will be best, or to get feedback. Meaning, if they flip the classroom, would it be something that they could do for IEL, for the hard courses?
So I'll address that one quickly, but I'll start with the previous one. So in terms of math and science courses, especially more fundamental, foundational courses, absolutely, they're content driven and it can be really difficult to find opportunities or time. One thing that comes to mind that I have done is, perhaps there, and specifically for math and science, perhaps there's a seminar speaker coming on campus, giving a math presentation or something in the sciences. Well, you could offer that as, even an extra credit assignment. Maybe you just have students go. If you want to go one step further, you have them go and reflect on what they learned from that. The other thing I would say is, if you can find those kinds of events, associated events, things that are related, right, to, in some way, to the content of the course. The other thing I try to do with things like that is if I offer that and say, I think this is a really good seminar, you might want to go attend this, I do my absolute best to be there as well. Because I think it's important that they see I value it. So I'm not just saying, hey, you go and do something. I mean, this is something I want to go and learn from. as well. And I think that piece is important. The second thing, and this is a little bit harder, again, sort of going back to experiential learning theory, there's an experience and there's reflection. You can try to build in little reflection pieces into your courses, even math and science. Now that can get difficult to do, but there are opportunities to build those little pieces in to ask students to reflect on problems they're solving, math or science problems. And understandably, that can be a little more difficult to do. You want to follow
Well, and I
up?
was gonna say just to, and I will just admit, I'm not a math person at all. But I mean, we do this in K-12 all the time. I've danced out the water cycle more times than you can imagine, or photosynthesis, or, no, I mean, seriously, this is how, and kind of going back to your question, this is another utility of the arts. I mean, if somebody will explain the math problem to me, I'd be happy to partner with somebody, and my students and I could create some kind of choreographic process or little movement experience that relates to a math problem. And also, I mean, with science and math, I mean, I'm sure you go out into the world and see things that occur on a daily basis that relate to those equations, right? So wouldn't that be a real,
Absolutely.
yeah, but I mean, maybe partnering with somebody in another discipline, yeah.
I do just want to address, since there was a question about flipped classrooms. So, the value in a flipped classroom is that you're able to sort of take content that you would deliver in the classroom and then have students learning that more independently outside the classroom. So certainly that it's an opportunity to, if you're shifting that content learning, at least the preparation outside the classroom, then when you're in the classroom, you have a lot more freedom for the things that you can do to work through problems or have dialogue, conversations, maybe build in experiential learning. So I would just say the short answer that I would have for that question, Zabri, is yes, I think you can use that. I will also say from experience that developing a highly effective flipped classroom takes time. So not always, yes.
I wanted to bring up the concept of integrative learning and something Maryanne did not really touch on, but she was instrumental in the public health master's program in creating a truly exemplary integrative learning experience for her students. They had siloed departments, and there are multiple departments, but she, in terms of transformed their curriculum into learning the skills and being able to have it in class where the skill is taught, but yet you have students from within the multiple departments coming in learning the skills to apply it across the curriculum. So they're learning, as she was saying, the quantitative research, but you have a health HPEB student and they're learning the skill and how to apply it to their field. They have an EPI student in there, they have a policy student, and then it's breaking down the barriers within the department also, because these are skills that are applicable no matter what area of public health they go into. But I wanted to also applaud her insight into taking it to the next level. And honestly, that's something that y'all need to pick her brain on how she did this and the success that she's having with it. It's a perfect example of truly integrating curriculum in the whole department. So I'm gonna tell y'all to talk more about that as a model.
Yeah, I think this is a change we had to do because of accreditation. So we call it the new NPH, and we started long ago, right? Like about 2 years ago, we taught the first integrated class last fall. And we do have, at the end, an ILE, integrated learning experience, that we have to do. We're looking forward to it, but it is very similar, and that's when I'm bringing what I'm learning with you, Amber. So yeah, it's not easy, particularly because we are co-teaching. And co-teaching is challenging. And someone told me it it is difficult because now the students believe everything you say, but then you have a fear right there. You have to take care of what you say because they know, you know. And it's the same for him in this case. And it has been a wonderful experience, very stressful, lots of work, but we did it, Lydia. You know, you help us, and we are going to improve in the fall. We are going to start working on the improvements for the fall.
I think I hear another workshop. That Miriam is going to lead.
I just wanted to address real quickly from the online question, the idea of content coverage. So I personally, and I think there's evidence for it too, that the myth of content coverage is there's an idea that if I don't talk about it in front of the class, the students aren't going to learn it. But just because you're talking about it in front of the class does not equal learning. It is really a passive form of learning that is probably going to guarantee that your students aren't going to really internalize that kind of stuff. And so if you take time to pick out what the really core concepts are for your course that they really do need to have deep learning on, integrative and experiential learning can actually lead to greater reflection and greater deep learning for your students that will be able to carry on into further courses.
That is a great point. My students are undergraduate students. We don't have graduate students in dance. They turn in reading notes for every single class. It's just a part of the class. We come in and then we're doing it. I don't need to sit down and talk to them what they read about the concept, just based on the reading. Yeah, and then that idea of content coverage and going back to the question that Savory asked a minute ago, they call it an arts integration, connecting concepts, and you see it happening a lot where you have a science person. There's actually a great video from the Annenberg Foundation online, a science teacher and a dance teacher coming together, or some other arts teacher coming together, because you can explore the concept of force through movement, and that's something that you explore scientifically as well. So, yeah.
We still have a few minutes for questions or other observations, so yes.
Yeah, so I was thinking about the question that was about how do we incorporate experiential learning into the hard sciences and math. And coming from chemistry, I was just thinking that a lot of the sciences have a lab component, which is a doing, it's an experience. But I'm thinking that, like from my experience teaching lab, a lot of the students, the way that the lab is structured, they go in and they're trying to finish the lab, complete it as quickly as possible, and turn in the bare minimum. So I'm kind of brainstorming, like maybe there's more reflection, maybe the students need more guided reflection to really understand why this lab was chosen for that week and why they did it and what they're supposed to take away. And I didn't know if you had resources for that, because maybe we're underutilizing the lab experience.
So I will take that one quickly. So, and we could talk more offline if you would like to. Obviously we have labs in engineering as well, and it's very typically or traditionally the same model, right? Walk in, here's a set of steps to perform to complete this experiment, and student walks away and says, I have no idea why I just did step 1 through 20, but I had to do it, right? We have done this with some of our labs, completely revamping them to be open-ended problem-solving driven. And so we actually give them more contextual problems that they need to solve. Oh, by the way, to solve the problem, you have to run this set of experiments that they don't necessarily know until we guide them through it. Oh, I need this piece of information. Oh, I can run this test. Oh, that's why we do this test. So now, I'm saying that in a very ideal way that we hope all students gain that. Again, it takes some time and effort to do those things, but you can overlay it with more contextual problems.
And I would say Dr. Bain has a lot of books, but the What the Best College Teachers Do book, honestly, it's it's really good. And you can take those examples and you can apply them to any. The seminar had people from all different disciplines. And it just kind of gives you a different perspective on teaching, I think.
Yeah. Agreed. Maybe one more question. Anyone else have a question or an observation, something they'd like to share? Yes?
Well, one question I have, and kind of thinking about when you were working with small children, how do you all address, and I know some offices provide support, some of the risk and safety involved in going outside of the classroom? What are some of the steps that you've taken and support that you've received?
I usually consult with the Babcock Center has a whole different background check process that my students, it doesn't cost them anything, but they have an entirely different process that we have to go through. I also make sure that this year it was interesting because they would just usually there was somebody around and they would just keep leaving us this year, and it was making me nervous because we had one participant with a walker with cerebral palsy that it was more difficult for him to move than it was 2 years ago. And so, making sure that you just have that in place. And then they have to have a sled check before they go into any school. But really communicating with the site is important.
I know that takes time to figure out, so in your planning process.
Yeah, and I want to dig into the students' security too, because sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, I'm taking, it's not just me, but a group of people, 23 students that are 18, 19 years old. What can be, things have happened, not terrible, fortunately, but one student walking a branch of a tree fell her head and had to be taken and stitches, and her mom was a nurse, so they were communicating with the mom, and the mom said, "You wanna come home?" No. So this is also, a concern, and but also one of the students was the daughter of the dean. So, and she got sick, and I said, I have to go with her. There is a whole staff that we have, these providers that they provide support. And I went with her, and it was the most wonderful experience for her to face the healthcare system in Costa Rica. How she said, come with me. She didn't speak Spanish much. We got there, and for us to go to the doctor. Sure, yes. The doctor spoke perfect English. And I was like, yes. But, treated her really well, and I said, you still need us here? But she, she was 18, and so we were like the moms there, and then get the medication right there, walking, didn't have to, wait and go elsewhere to get the medication, and so then I could write an email to the parents, first contact with the healthcare system that we could have.
And study abroad has resources, and also if you don't have a person or office in your area, we have a great legal department. I mean, because with my department, we have so many people coming in and out, right, that we have so many different legal documents that were approved by them, so they're very accessible.
Okay, I think we need to turn it over to you, right?
Yeah, thank you so much. Let's first thank our panelists. Just a reminder, today is part of the Certificate of Completion program for Integrative and Experiential Learning. If you want more information, we have a flyer on that in the back of the room. All of you have in front of you the Cte Calendar, which also has helpful information on activities. The key to the calendar is things are color-coded because we have multiple certificates of completion. We continue to add, so we're going to run out of color soon. This is also available online. The beauty of the online PDF is everything is clickable. You have an evaluation form. As you're leaving, the staff will pick up the evaluation form from you. Mary, just hand it to Mary as you're leaving. And finally, please, we're trying to take lessons from everyone. The great thing about being on campus is we are surrounded by thousands of really smart people. So one of our goals in social media is sharing with each other. So please If you're on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, connect with us, share your thoughts and observations. Obviously, we'd like you to look at what we post, but more importantly, tag us so we can share what you posted and we can spread everything around, give everyone the benefit of your experience. Again, thank you very much one more time for the panel.